Zorton Throg now has the party in his clutches from afar. What are they going to do? The only thing they can do is to swap one menace out for a different menace and hope that the latter is the less menacing. And then, of course, another chapter of this ongoing story of vengeance kicks off with an explosion. Hit it. Right, so Costello has brought the party to the person that he knows about who will be able to advise them. And he's not happy about having to do this. And they go into this person's property. Tanador goes in all with the mind of saying, right, I'm going to force him to help us. Force him to help us. Make him help us. Yeah, just one thing though. It turns out that it's Lord Eldrick. That's right. The Blood Mage, whose son was the one possessed and responsible in the player-created module that was run for this party, the Oleander Mall. Do you remember that one? The box with the flowers design on it and the demon inhabiting it, and they all ended up in the Fade. And that's when the constricting walls trap that actually wasn't a trap that could kill you, but it's actually supposed to start discord amongst the group trap happened while in the Fade. And we're going back now to there. And of course, Amelia hated Lord Eldrick and didn't want anything to do with the blood magic. But of course, Amelia's not here. And you might be thinking, what are the effects of Amelia and all of this? Well, attempts have been made on her. Attempts to manipulate her sleep. And the effects thus far are more minor, but what's going to happen next? I mean, why are they minor? She's a Templar. She's able to resist that bit better, but it's only a matter of time before he learns how to break her. And where's Squire in all of this? He hasn't shown himself in a while. Anyway, they're here with Lord Eldrick. He has left Ferelden and gone to Freeport to hide out. Oh dear. A blood mage right in front of them all. And so they start threatening him and saying, oh, well, you know, Amelia's not here. And he says, yeah, well, I'm glad to see that, because she wouldn't have even let you come here to do this. Yes, all right. I'll agree to help you. However, you're not going to like it, what I need to do. The force that has you is more powerful than I. It is a wizard that has lived for centuries. How can this be? Just who have you made an enemy of? And the group say, oh, we're always doing this, but you know, we were investigating someone on behalf of Lady Baranti, and he didn't like us doing it, and now he wants rid of us. And it was the fact that he can't get rid of the party. It's the fact that attempts have been made on their life that have failed, and each time it annoys him more and more. And he's starting to become a little bit upset with the group, obsessed almost, with destroying them in their dreams. Of course, every time they'd go to sleep, you know, Zorton Throg would be able to appear and do like a Freddy Krueger thing on them. It would only be a matter of time before they'd be destroyed. There's no protection in their dreams. He will have them. So, Gabe's come along. Costello's waiting outside. And they agreed to this. But he's very upfront. Eldrick, he explains, it has to be done with blood magic. And I can't take the enchantment away. Okay? He's explained it a bit like an artery pumping blood. So you imagine the artery, and of course he's a blood mage, so the artery, it's connecting Zord and Throg to the party, and it's like a signature that goes through the Fade, and that's how he's done it. He's reached them through the Fade, through some encounter they've come up against. Has actually been a dummy encounter at some point against spirits or some sort of Fade creature, and they've actually latched onto the party for him. That's how this has happened. And he has them. And of course, when the big event at the lighthouse happened, there was a huge pulse of energy which lit up literally like a beacon, but also to a magic sensitive, overtly powerful mage such as Throg. It drew attention, highlighted exactly where the group were, and he was able to instantly latch onto them and appear. And then it was a case of, well, now I have you. So if you imagine like a blood artery, and this is in the way, so every time the blood starts trying to pump through, it has to pass through this little corrupted bit, to get to the heart. So that's every time they sleep. They're going through their process of sleeping. And Eldrick said, look, I cannot deal with that corruption. It's more powerful than I am. The only thing I can do is use blood magic to reroute it. Okay, so I reroute it early and have it come around, but the problem is it's going to be free, and your life force will leak away, and as soon as you dream tonight, you'll go into the Fade and never come back. So it needs to be connected somewhere. So it needs to be connected to him. And that's the hard decision the group had to make. They had to decide, we're going to have the exact same problem potentially, the same control over us, except it will be Lord Eldrick controlling us, having that power over us, at least, the potential for control, instead of Zord and Throg. They decided, well, Eldrick's less powerful, we'll do it. So he also shows curiosity to some of the items being held by Delilah. That being the sickle that was removed from the tower. That was Milton Drac's sickle of soul binding. I was very interested in partaking of that, and wanted to get at the yellow sign stone that's 99% full now. If I remember correctly, he didn't get at the sickle, but he did get at the stone, and he got at the gold amulet that used to belong to Milton Drac, with the promise that he will take these accursed items that almost doomed Freeport and place them in his large storage place, which happens to be connected to the Fade. That's right, he stores things at the Fade. He's a madman. So, anyway, blood mages. So they give this talisman to him, and he gets hold of the yellow jewel, and then he does the rites upon them. And in this time, they are then connected to him. Zord and Throg, in theory, won't be able to do any more dream manipulation. Tough choice the group had to make there. Have they made the right one? They swapped one foe for, hopefully, one who won't be a foe. But Karak also did point out, he said, look, I've had a little bit of dabbling now with blood magic. Obviously going back to the Gabe thing he did. And, would there be some point in the future when you would consider training me? Teaching me some of it? Good job Amelia's not present. And he said yes, he'd be interested for the right price. So basically it's another one of those things that if Craig wants Karak to undertake blood magic at 14 as the second specialisation, he now has his route to do it. He's got a few routes open to him. At the moment he's a spirit healer, and he complains that he's just pretty much having to be a heal bot. And I say to him, hey, A, you took the spells, right? You took the heals and things. Right? If you hadn't have taken heal spells, you wouldn't have been able to heal, and they would have to have got by other means that people do without healers. And secondly, you don't have to heal. You could just let them get on with it. You could carry on with your damaging spells and so forth. But no, he likes being the saviour anyway, I think, and going into some sort of thing and doing a big AoE heal and keeping them all propped up. And it is actually through Karak's mega healing and then his stunt power proccing and then putting out another heal again and all this sort of thing that makes the group empowered enough to take on the crazy things that they take on and hold out against them. And they've turned encounters that are nigh impossible and made them winnable. So, just one mage is an exceedingly powerful thing indeed. Anyway, Gabe, the now blind Gabe, has gone through the process with Karak. They've gone off privately together and gone through their joining ceremony thing. And it's mad because he already has tainted blood, yet warden blood inside him. This really is not good news. I mean, how's that going to all work out? But the joining has gone fine. Gabe will now be empowered as a Grey Warden. But is he fully a Grey Warden? It's the process, some stocks on hand, and they have privately sought out the Darkspawn within the region for the joining, which in this case are aquatic forms that just live off the shore. There'd been some rumours of sort of like mer creature things washing up and so on. So there's a little bit of it around there. And Gabe hasn't died from that. But maybe, in the long term, he might wish he had. I don't know. We'll see how that one develops. But, Gabe is not with the group now. He's trying to, learn how to deal with his blindness. And no doubt he's going to meet a mentor here. He'll be staying in Freeport, making it his base of operations. Someone to teach him how to more blind fight and cope with his new condition. Maybe a sort of the stick to his Matt Murdock. Well, anyway, on to other things. So the group carry on. They toodaloo along their way. And a week or so passes. Freeport is starting to recover now, as best as it can. With Drac gone, the council's turned upside down. There are members that are being kicked out, voted out, new council members coming in. A big time of change. There's no Sea Lord. What's going to happen with that? It's just the council running things at the moment. So, a lot of the guards are still some of the ones that were in Milton Drac's pocket. So, they can't be trusted. There needs to be a permanent changing of the guards. The council have a lot of work on their hands, and they can't cope with another problematic issue. And a problematic issue is the very thing that was about to occur. As the group were walking down the way through the merchants' district, taking a look at all the different things available in the shops, and Karak finding a tome, another one of his magical tomes, for like 40 gold or whatever. This one being wind weaving. So he'd have to do a test before each adventure to see if he knows the spell that adventure. So it's not a fully learned spell. It's that sort of dealy-do. And they didn't really buy anything. There was a few items there, but nothing to attract to them here. Of course, they're sloshing around with gold, and a lot of that gold was spread out. Ash and Delilah now have a good chunk of gold each. and they did follow through and give old Gareth the sailor his 20% commission for pointing them to the direction of Black Dog's caves, where they obviously picked all that gold up. But the Jade Serpent is now with the group. It's with Costello. Jade Serpent's going to have an important part to play. If Costello can survive and remain in contact with the Serpent, he will be able to make attunement tests, and if as soon as he succeeds in an attunement test, he'll be able to get level 1 attunement with the Jade Serpent. And effectively, I'm going to treat these things as like a delayed specialization effect for Costello. So there'll be 3 levels of attunement. So we'll see if he can access them all, and he'll have, you know, unusual, unique powers that will unlock with each level of attunement. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be like anything else in the game, and I do like that. You know, that each of the player characters are unique. You know, they could never really play another thing like that again. It makes them, you know, special who they are. They might be able to access things that something of their broad class description usually can't, and you know, that's fine. You know, it's like Tanador being a warrior ranger, so he's actually got like a pet, but he's a warrior, but he's forced to wear lighter armor, and it's all sort of stuff like that. So yeah, it's cool. And I'll be covering, I'll be trying to separately cover actually all of the unique specializations that have gone out into this group, because obviously Costello is a cleric of Yig. We've got Delilah as a acrobatics monk. We've got Ashard, who's taking the warrior stances as his specialization. He'll actually be, Ashard's the inventor of these stances, effectively. So he hasn't had to go somewhere to learn them. He's developed them himself. And obviously the warrior ranger thing that Tanador is. And there's eateries around the place. And suddenly, an eatery called Morris's explodes. That's right, guys. We're going into vengeance in Freeport. Milton Drac has one last dastardly plan of revenge to exact upon all of Freeport, even though he is currently enjoying his post-life. And effectively, what has happened here is he put a insurance in place that he was going to have 8 jars, pots, with magical explosives inside, set to detonate on different specific locations on different days over the course of a period of time, and this would occur if he did not contact the person to make it happen. Him being dead, of course. It would be his final revenge. How did he choose the 8 locations? He will have communed with the dark essences beyond the plane, and determined what locations are either important, significant in some way, in some power, that which goes over ley lines or has some use to the people, or something that's going to become significant in the future, and by disrupting it now, by causing the bloodshed. It's like a rite of sacrifice. Each explosion actually spoils the area, and whatever goodness that would have emanated from it for the future peoples won't. So he's really hurting Freeport in a bad way. Okay, he's trying to apply, as it were, 8 malignant growths upon the city island itself with each explosion. And of course he's not there to call it off, and the first bomb goes off. Morris's explodes, and the wheel that was hung up on the outside goes flying through the air and lands at their feet. And they run to the scene and they see dead people all out on the street. And sections of it have partially caved in. The explosions happen from inside. Everything's pushed out. Karak helps a load of the people on the street. Goes through his first aid kits. And then the group go in and start trying to search the place. There are 3 survivors inside and a load of dead. One of the survivors doesn't make it. The other 2 are saved. And they roughly locate where the explosion happened, and they've managed to retrieve a fragment of this pottery. Karak's managed to determine that it was some sort of magical effect, like a trigger effect based on the symbol. He doesn't know exactly what the symbol does. And Costello took a bit of a look at it too and was able to determine the same thing. Then they looked on the bottom and saw the maker's mark on the pottery, and it was 4 X's. So they then went from there and met one of the newest members of the council, Gwendolyn, who they'd met previously before at the party at Milton Drac's mansion, palace, whichever. And she said, look, I want you to investigate this. We don't have the time or resources to look into this. You've obviously found the piece of pottery now. Follow up on it. You guys have already averted one disaster. You're the heroes of this place. Please stop it. So, vengeance in Freeport begins. They look at the 4X markings, do a bit of investigation checks, and find out that there is a potter's shop, and the potter is called Zangi, and X for Zangi. So, also found out that he died a short little while ago. Something's going on. They go to the shop, and they find a young man, not he, of course, because he's dead. Although, in Dragon Age you never quite know, there's necromancy and such. The young man's his son, and he's in a pretty pissed off state, just cleaning up pottery shards everywhere, and the group come in and want to talk to him, and he says, look, we're closed, and tries telling them to piss off, and they won't go. And he says, look, this pot, okay, look at the bottom of it. What do you think? Do you recognise it? And he says, yeah, it's definitely one of my dad's. And I said, he used 4 X's, so I suppose now when I start making pots, I'm going to have to use 5 X's, because it's kind of the family tradition. They'd had the shop turned over. Some thugs had come in, making trouble, asking for his father's whereabouts and the books, and wanted to get at the ledger and all this sort of business. His father had mysteriously died with a bolt of thunder. Terrible luck, that. And the group just kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, definitely magic. And so it looks like he's been assassinated, the pot maker. So okay, the plot, and indeed the pot, thickens. Yes, the stew. So they say to Zangilo, is it possible that these could have been used for that? And he said, look, we just make the pots. We don't do anything else with them. What anyone else inscribes upon it for any purpose is out of our hands, They say, oh, okay, well, they wanted to get into the back room. Maybe we could go in and take a look. He didn't want to help them too much. He said, look, I'm too busy. I've already lost out on so many profits now. I've taken this business over. Poor old Luakin. Unlucky Luakin. And he said, I can't spare the time to even be dealing with you on all of this. And the group said, look, okay, how about we give you some gold to try and, buy your broken pottery off of you, that which has been turned over, and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to spend the time cleaning it up. So they gave him like about 4 gold or so, and he decided to help them. That was nice of them. And he showed them into the back room, showed them the ledger. They took a look at the ledger and found that a page with the name Parnasse on it, a sale, for 8 J-A, and then it's been torn away, you see, crudely ripped out of the book. And they say, probably jars that means, and he says, yes, actually, because they've helped him, he goes that extra bit further to try and help them back. He says, yes, thinking on it, actually, I was present, and yeah, I think I can help you. That was Parnasse, and he did take 8 jars. And so they've had the confirmation they needed. They know who's bought the 8 jars from the ledger that has been ripped out to cover up the evidence. So something's going on. So then they go to Parnasse's place. They didn't figure him for a wizard. They just figured him for some eccentric old man, who just wants to keep maybe some cremated ashes in or something. They deal with all types in their shop. And they find Parnasse's home. They, upon approach to the house, they see a Talvashoth coming out of the door, all dressed in red, also fitting the description of the people that turned the shop over, which are the Crimson Death, a mercenary order that have been working close to the case. They must have come in and ripped the page out of the ledger, somehow maybe keeping poor old unlucky Luke distracted during that point. And he runs back in and shuts the door, and they go in after him, and they can't find him. And they start searching the place, trying to search for Parnasse. And it's clear that he doesn't appear to be around. And eventually they go into the bedroom, and there are curtains pulled around the bed. And they pull the curtains back, and there they find Parnasse's body, quite badly decomposed. Karak does his medical check and determines that he's probably at least a week dead. So what's going on? They go down into the basement level, and that's where they find the Talvashoth waiting for them. 3 of the Crimson Death mercs are down there. They step forward and confront the group. And they say, oh, what are you here for? And they say, well, what are you here for? And they say, look, you know who we are? We're the heroes. We stopped Milton Drac. We did this, we did that. Their reputation does actually precede them in this place. Did all the roles. And yes, the Crimson Death guys realised they were outnumbered, had been successfully intimidated, and, these guys are real hard-ass, pain type dudes. So, we don't want to actually have to fight them if that's possible. So they said, look, you tell us what you're here to do, and that'll be fine. They said, well, look, we didn't kill Parnasse, all right? He was already dead. We just came here to recover a letter. And said, look, we're not being paid enough to deal with the likes of you. We'll let you read the letter, and then you let us go and take the letter to where we're supposed to be taking it. How about that? Anyway, the group agreed to that. So they took a look at the letter, and it was a letter to somebody called Zalkima from Milton Drac, initialed MD at the bottom. So they worked out who it was. And, he's confirming the entirety of the plot. If you don't hear from me again, have these selected jars go off at the appropriate locations. So, that's fine. They need to confront Zalkima, whoever that is. The mercs confirm that he owns Z-Torage, or Storage, a storage warehouse operations, and they were about to take the note to him there. So, look, they'll show the party the way, and just let them go in and get their pay first and get back out, and then all will be fine. The party agreed to that. So, the Crimson Death guys, they head to the warehouse. And, of course, the lead that could have had the group going to the Crimson Death hideout, that won't now have to happen. But again, it's just another combat. And it's just nothing necessarily fun about that combat. So it doesn't really have to be a forced point. If they didn't go there, don't want to try and railroad them into going there. If there's going to be fights, I like to know that at least there's something that puts it a bit apart, rather than, some guys just fighting us in a house somewhere, in a base. So, like going for the lighthouse where time was an issue, for example. See, that was fun. That gave me another dimension to work with. Literally the fourth dimension. Space-time together. So, that's where they left off. However, they also did get the tip off that the guys got a couple of flesh golems there. Click and clack. Zalkima inside the warehouse. Oh dear. The group, I think, got a little bit shaky at that. Flesh golems, and even the mercs confirmed. We stay away from them things. Big old nasties. We don't mess with them. So, the group, this is where we left off. They're all ready to head into the warehouse. These golems could be a problem. I've converted them over from the True 20 system into Age. And, looking at it and looking at the stunts they've got and everything else, I make no apologies for how frightening they are. Because I've based off of other types of golems, which are a part of the world. And obviously these have much less armour, they've just got a bit of hardened skin. But they make up for it in certain other ways, certain other stunts and abilities they have access to. And they're that bit more horrifying. Because they are made up of many different body parts, like, of course, the classic Frankenstein's monster, except these will be far more hideous. They'll make him look like some sort of cover model. So, they're outside, the Crimson Death are going to go in and get their pay. What happens next? You'll have to tune in for the next session. Can they survive this? I'm betting that somebody's going to come away in a body bag. Maybe one of the party. Because this will be tough. And if they don't get their shit together and really get firm and do all the right stuff, if they get slack somewhere and just start getting into the mindset of rolling dice to attack against your defense, not really trying to access every little thing they can do, not sort of like, or preparing that potion now just in case their health gets low, or doing this thing, or get the bandages in place, or even have bandages on you, even bothered to have bought healing kits for that purpose. All those little things that can mean the difference between life and death, using all those items on you, using the explosives, like the exploding skulls that they managed to loot also from Milton Drac. He threw one at the group in the previous thing, but Tanador is currently carrying a bag of 2 of them. Anything can make the difference here. And I've put a particular extra mechanic on the golems that should prove very interesting, built into them. And again, I haven't seen any of this been done before. I've just created it. An enrage mechanic. So technically, it's a timed fight. They'll probably be up against one golem, then potentially be up against another. Let me tell you how the plan's going to go from here, alright? Because by the time my players see this, they will have already all done it. So, they've let the Crimson Death go into the warehouse. And the Crimson Death are going to collect their pay, and then warn Zelkim inside, look, some guys are outside looking for you. They've tipped him off. So, he'll be waiting. And he'll offer them all, each of them, 10 gold to stay behind and help kill the party. So, they will have to deal with 2 flesh golems, Zelkima, about, say, 4 or 5 rounds into the fight. May not be both golems straight up. The golems aggro by line of sight to closest and continue on at that person. So that will be interesting. Positioning will be key. I'll be watching minutely for where they push their miniature, close to where I know the corner is with a golem in. And that's that, right? And so they could be facing Zelkima, who's a duelist rogue, 2 flesh golems, and 3 Crimson Death Talvashoth. What are the party going to come up with? Will they think to try and make the Crimson Death a counter offer to walk away? I doubt they'd have enough money to pay the Crimson Death to help them, unless they said something stupid like, here's 100 gold, help us. Otherwise, I think even just beating the guy's offer will be enough to make them turn their back on Zelkima, those 3 in particular. Wow. They can reduce this themselves, and lack of greed, getting rid of some of their earnings, all those masses of gold that they're sitting on, will help to do it. And if they don't, well, they deserve what they're going to get, because they'll be massively outnumbered with terrible odds against them. Because just the fact that the rogue is there, and he'll be popping up along with the 2 golems, it really adds insult there. I think those 2 golems together working in tandem would be bad enough. And as I was saying about the rage mechanic, I'm actually going to be using a D100 system for just the rage mechanic. So what I'm going to do is I'll have a 2 D10s ready to be able to generate D100 random results. And each of the golems will come in with a pre-generated 5 rage per player characters present. So they'll probably both start with like 25 rage. Okay, and then every round they gain 5 rage. So then it would go up to 30, then 35 the following round. And I would do a roll at each round to see if they enrage. And of course, the more rounds that go by, the more likely they are to enrage. So it's just like a percentile roll, effectively, you're turning it into. And once they rage, well, at that point, they get to unleash extra damage on you for damage to them. So they hurt you that much extra and damage themselves doing it. And they also get to proc their stunt die, whether they roll doubles or not, every round. That's what the enrage does. So it turns them into like super boss mode. So it's a timed fight, and they've got to get onto this and kill these things quickly. And if they don't get their stuff together, if they don't get the threatened stunts going, actively protecting each other, healing when they need to, tactically placing themselves to deal with this, using their surroundings to the best. And there are certain things within the warehouse that they may even be able to use against the golems. Someone's going to die probably. These things have big health pools, and they're going to put out a heck of a lot of pain. We'll see how it goes. But, that's where it stands right now. Until next time, I'll see you at the table.